Sorry, I wasn't looking.
No, that's okay.
Seems like a cut and dry one tonight.
You just jinxed it, Heath. You
Spent all last week with my little one
I guess.
eating every bed. I blame you mostly because I drive by our house. I'm like,
good. How are you? Oh, thank you.
not enough last year, and so, anyways, it's done. But 16 bags of junk. Because you always get more dirt than you understand. Oh, just smoke the weed. No, you can have everything. So, and then I called it for mulch. Like, I'm done. I can't.
Same. I always pay somebody to do that.
And like 4 guys came and did it.
All right. Wait for Councillor Khan, and then we will go. Good evening, councillors. Before we start this evening's meeting, I want to recognize a local resident who passed away recently. Beverly Morrow McBurney passed away on April 13th, 2024, after a long illness. She was born in Newburyport and remained a lifelong resident. Bev was a proud member of the Newburyport High School class of 1954. After earning her nursing degree through the Burbank Hospital School of Nursing at Fitchburg State, she worked at the Hale Hospital in Haverhill, Anna Jakes in Newburyport, and did private duty nursing. She was a strong proponent of vocational education. She went on to develop and direct health career education programs at both Northeast Regional Voc Tech and Whittier Regional Voc Tech at the secondary and post-secondary levels. She loved Atkinson Common, and I know many of us know her from that. Some of us who are newer on the scene. She was a lifelong member of the Belleville Improvement Society, where Beverly became president of the organization. She expanded fundraising and grant writing and oversaw the renovations of the park from the Plummer Avenue entrance to the front of the park, and monuments were refurbished, trees were planted, and facilities updated. Besides her husband and 2 daughters, Bev leaves behind 3 siblings, and also her 100-year-old uncle, Robert Chouinard, also known as Boots Chouinard, and a long list of cousins, nieces, nephews, and in-laws on both sides of the family. So let us please take a moment to remember her. Thank you. If you can now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To call the roll.
I would be happy to call the roll for the May 13, 2024 meeting. Councillor Zeid.
Here.
Councillor Donahue.
Here.
Councillor Granis. Here. Councillor Harmon.
Here.
Councillor Khan.
Present.
Councillor Lane is absent. Councillor McCauley is absent. Councillor Preston.
Here.
Councillor Shan.
Present.
Councillor Wright.
Here.
And Council President Cameron.
Here.
So we have 2 absent. We have 9 present. We have a quorum.
Any late file items?
I'm happy to report there are no late files.
It's a very happy thing to report. Public comment.
Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you. First of all, Michael Strauss, if you could, for the viewers at home and the recording, please state your name and your address, and 2 minutes to speak on an agenda item.
evening. Thank you, Mr. President, City Council. Mike Strauss, 56 Federal Street, Chair of the Energy Advisory Committee. I apologize for not being able to make last meeting, but I did watch the recording, and I was impressed with the discussion that you all had on the opt-in stretch code. I'd like to speak about two concerns that were brought up. One is supply chain issues. The other is the ability of the grid to supply electricity. Shortages come and go. Wars, pandemics, we've had shortages of eggs, computer chips, toilet paper, gasoline. Fortunately, we live in a capitalist system, and that makes short work of them. So it's unwise to make long-term policy based on short-term issues. I think that you did a good job with a compromise that sounded reasonable to phase it in over a year, and that was wise. As for the grid, you may not be, it was impressive to hear your concern for the growth of the city and what pressures it would put on the electric grid. Growth will put pressures on all sorts of structures in the city. Parking, schools, water, sewer, pretty much every municipal service, not just the electric grid. What you may not be aware of, it is both federal and state policy to expand the electric grid. And that's going on right now. A policy to phase in more electric, such as the stretch code does, which is with just new construction, allows the grid to expand responsibly. If you're really worried about our residents' ability to heat their homes in the winter, you should be concerned about natural gas. We have some of the highest prices for natural gas here in Massachusetts, and the reason is we don't produce it. We get it through pipelines, and those pipelines have limited capacity. That's why the price goes up in the winter, not because of direct supply, it's because of pipeline capacity. It is the policy of this state, through Republican and Democratic administrations, to expand the electric capacity through hydro from Quebec, through offshore wind. Those long-term plans are going to come. They will, because it's been through both parties. The same can't be said for natural gas. It's not clear how, when, if, and how much it would cost to expand the natural gas capacity in the state. So the responsible thing to do is to move electric. I urge you all to strongly to vote for the opt-in specialized stretch code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Spiro.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Spiro. I'm a new resident of Newburyport on 117 Low Street. I also listened to the recording from last week about the discussion you had on the opt-in specialized code. I was very impressed, and I thought it might be helpful for you guys to hear just a personal anecdote. So like I said, I just moved in to 117 Low Street a few months ago. It's an old 1840s farmhouse, very much not built for the current electric transition. And one of the first projects we undertook was to replace a gas range. It was old, it seemed like it was from the 80s, it was unvented, and it was the old variety where the pilot light was always on, and so each time we'd visited the house for the inspection, for our final walkthrough, the house always smelled like gas. And so we knew as we were moving in, one of the first projects we wanted to undertake was to replace it. And we thought, while we were replacing it, instead of putting in another gas range, let's just go induction. And it cost $6,000 just in electrical costs to upgrade the service to 200 amp service, to add a new circuit to the area of the kitchen where the stove would be, plus then the cost of the range itself. And so of course, there's lots of old houses in Newburyport where that's always going to have to be a necessity, but it just feels a little silly for when we're building new houses to not do that work up front before there's walls, before there's finishing. Just add that extra circuit to where you know the range will be in the kitchen and spare people like me, $6,000 in electrical costs. So yeah, I urge you guys to vote for the opt-in specialized code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Spiro, I will pronounce your name correctly the next time. And you moved into a great house. Good luck and welcome to the neighborhood. And you were exactly 2 minutes, so you're a model citizen in my eyes. Next on our public comment, and we will take public comment online if anyone wants to raise their hands. We have a few people there. Next would be Andrea Eigerman.
My name is Andrea Eigerman. I live at 83 High Street here in Newburyport. I'm here on behalf of the Port Parks Alliance. If you aren't aware of it, it is a new nonprofit that was formed a little over a year ago. It is a 501c3. And most important for you to know is that all of our founding documents link us to the city's Parks Commission. So we're not setting our own priorities. We are following the Parks Commission priorities, and we attend all their meetings. So I just wanted to say that I attended the Community Services meeting last week, and I wanted to reiterate that the Port Parks Alliance, as the Parks Commission, supports the Frog Pond Restoration Project and the overall Bartlett Mall Restoration Project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any online comment? Seeing no hands, I think we will cease public comment and we will go to the mayor's comment. The mayor is online, and also Chief of Staff Andrew Levine is here. Do you want to arm wrestle for who's going to go? I should allow the mayor to talk, and then he can. Mayor, would you like to say anything, or would you want to pass it along to Mr. Levine?
Did you allow him to
I
talk?
did.
He's muted on his end.
Ask to mute. Tried to promote him. He declined to be promoted as a panelist, which,
That tells.
why doesn't Chief of Staff Levine go?
I don't have much to say. We'll keep it pretty brief tonight. The mayor's update had a decent amount of updates on projects this evening, so that should be pretty helpful. First of all, though, it is the most wonderful time of the year, so you all have your binders in front of you for the budget. General public, the budget has been posted on the website. Recommend having a look. A lot of great information in there. We're looking forward to starting the hearing process. So thank you, Councillor Zeid, for running all of that. It says in here to give a big thank you to Chief of Staff Andrew Levine for putting it all together, along with Finance Director Ethan Manning. So just wanted to bring that up. It's important right here. So again, project updates. I just want to jump around to a couple key points in there. Market Landing Park. We're on track to be finishing sooner, planning a ribbon-cutting ceremony sometime first week of June. At that time, we'll also celebrate the near completion of the bulkhead project. In case anyone's really gotten used to having the barge crane there, unfortunately, that will be leaving soon. So just say goodbye to that crane barge. But really exciting that the concrete pouring is basically done. So that's great news, and the bulkhead is coming along great. Fire station, still on track for fall 2024. The exterior on the rear, the installation has started there for the rear siding, so that's exciting to see. Phillips Drive, weather's been some issues there, but some key milestones have been met there, with utilities almost complete. So there's some remaining work that's left, 18 water surfaces, 2 water main tie-ins, some short sections of drain pipe, but all headed in the right direction there. This is important, just want to let the community know on this one. Bartlett Mall Playground, we've had some closings of that playground for the port-in-place servicing to be poured in and repaired. So it's closed again tomorrow. That should be the last day that it's closed. There's some extra work being done at the Lower Atkinson Playground as well, but it's still open at this time. So all good things happening with these 2 playgrounds that have been resurfaced and improved. Your packets tonight includes the new zoning for being able to bring a community center use to 59 Low Street. So look forward to beginning that process of discussing that. Marquand Lane study, starting the early scoping, so we'll be getting that out the door shortly. This is important here. We do have a public meeting that's going to be held on the Low Street / Colby Farm Lane / North Atkinson Street safety project. So if you know anyone in that area, make sure to send that meeting. It's going to be at the Senior Community Center on May 22nd at 6 p.m. It's going to be an excellent opportunity to get some feedback to our consultant, TEC, who will be working on that. And then I've got a good message here that I'm going to go post on Facebook in a moment as well, but it's been posted on the website and on Nextdoor. just an update on streets and sidewalks work. There's different processes that are taking place for the streets that are having their sidewalks redone from the ones that are not, so it just impacts timeline. But there's some good information in here for residents about when we have no parking regulations on those and when we don't. So that notice has gone out and should be helpful for all of you. That's all I have to say.
Any questions, comments for the Chief of Staff? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we can move to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the April 29th minutes. There are 3 communications. Application 203, which is a block party, 52 Temple Street for August 1st between Federal and Fair, to go to license and permits. Communication 552 is the annual Fill the Boot Drive, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., again to go to license and permits. Communication 553 is a notification pursuant to the charter to the council from the administration that an acting marshal is being appointed, namely Mark Murray, beginning May 11th. That's to go to Public Works and Safety. Transfer, there are 2 transfers, 193 long-term debt, $28,500 to elections, $25,000 subscriptions, $3,000 and lease copy of $500. Budget and finance again. Transfer 194, large amount, $3,200,000, multiple projects. There's an attachment sheet with those on it. That's to go to budget and finance. 3 appointments. Appointment 488, Leslie Eckold, 36 Warren Street, to the Waterfront Trust until 2/15/2026. To go to Community Services. Appointment 489, Curtis Davis, 6 Market Street, Waterfront Trust, until 7/1/2029, Community Services. And appointment 590, Robert Coop, 36 Lime Street, to the Planning Board until 7/1/2027, to go to Planning and Development. The following items are coming out of the respective committees: Budget and Finance. Transfer 189, 192, Order 554. Transfer 190, 191, Order 560, 561, and 562. Coming out of Community Services, Appointment 483, Communication 525, 451, Order 474. License and Permits, applications coming out, 199, 200, and 201. Public Works and Safety, Appointment 484 coming out, Appointment 487 coming out, Ordinance 171, and Communication 527. And that's the consent agenda this evening, Mr. President.
Councillor Khan?
Yes, can I amend to transfer 194 to make it committee of the whole, please?
Okay,
That could be added.
transfer 194.
Budget and Finance and Committee of the Whole.
Motion to approve and collectively receive and file the mayor's update.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. That leads us, Mr. President, to orders.
Yes.
So we have Order 567, which is a gift from Saltbox Financial for $1,810.
Motion to refer 567, 68, 69, 70, and 71 to Budget and Finance, with 69 and 70 going Committee of the Whole
Second.
collectively.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Could we say which ones were Committee of the Whole again? And thank you, Councillor Zede.
Yeah, FY25 budget order and the FY25-29 CIP order.
Okay, great.
Shall I just read it into the record? So that order, mega order, if you will, to go to Budget and Finance is for Order 567, Saltbox Financial, 568, gift acceptance, $5,000 for a lithograph by Norman Rockwell. The aforesaid 2 orders, Budget and CIP, and Order 571, a waiver for asphalt on the sidewalks on Willow and Mosley Avenue.
I didn't mean 571, sorry, we'll leave that one out.
My mistake.
Yeah.
Should probably go to Public Works and Safety.
So those first 4 orders, all Budget and Finance, and the last 2 of those 4 will also be Committee of the Whole. And 571 we'll take up in a second. Okay. So motion was made by Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Preston. Any further discussion or any discussion? Councillor Khan?
Well, I thank you, and I appreciate us reading it in the record, but just so the public knows, we're sending the budget and CIP to Budget and Finance, which is 69 and 70. The other two are gift acceptances. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that would be a 9-0 vote. Order 571.
571 is a waiver for asphalt sidewalks on Willow Ave and Mosley Ave.
Motion to refer to Public Works and Safety.
Second.
Okay, motion made, Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Preston. Discussion, Councillor Khan, then Councillor Harmon.
Look, I defer to the sponsor.
Just at the at-large councilor's request to introduce, this is a waiver for 2 locations to have asphalt sidewalks instead of concrete. And working with the residents as well as DPS, the asphalt seemed like a better option in both of these locations, and look forward to discussing that with PWNS.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Okay, I believe this could also be a voice vote. So we'll do it that way. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, so that would be a 9-0 vote. Which gets us to ordinances.
And we have a second reading on ordinance 166, which is the Specialized Energy Code.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion? Okay, everyone's very amenable tonight so far. So this would be a roll call vote?
Yes. So on approving ordinance 166, second reading, Councillor Zede.
No.
Councillor Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor Granis.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
8, heating 6, motion passes. Leads us to ordinance 167, which is a second reading of the residential seasonal dock fee.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Preston. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Roll call on approving 167. Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor Granis. Yes. Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Councillor President Cameron.
Yes. Ordinance 168.
Ordinance 168 is a second reading on handicap parking spaces.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Harmon. Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Approving 168. Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor Granis. Yes. Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
And Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
9-2, thank you.
Okay.
That leads us to ordinance 172. It reads in your agenda zoning amendment R2, that is a Scrivener's error, it should be I1 at Hale Street and Low Street.
Motion to refer to Planning and Development and Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Okay. Motion made to refer to Planning and Development Committee of the Whole by Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Shand. Discussion? Sure. Councillor Shand.
So as we've all heard, this is the zoning for Low Street, and I will just give everyone an update. I've already discussed with Director Port, the joint committee meeting with Planning and Development and P&D is going to be on June 5th. So mark your calendars, and that will be Committee of the Whole. June 5th.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, to refer to committee, I think we'd do a roll call as well.
Okay. Referring to committee, ordinance 172. Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor Granis. Yes. Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
And Councillor Cameron.
Yes. Okay, ordinance 173.
Ordinance 173 is an amendment to Chapter 8 under the trash rules and regulations.
Motion to waive the rules since the sponsor isn't here and refer to Public Works and Safety.
Second.
Does anybody want Committee of the Whole on
Public
this too,
Works
or
and
not?
Safety.
And Committee of the Whole?
Sorry.
Okay. Also, Committee of the Whole, was that seconded? Yeah, I think.
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Khan?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I thought the introduction, so if anyone could introduce this, because I really do think it's so important to introduce new business. I was going to offer we table it to the next meeting. I know we did that with the specialized code when I was not here to introduce it, and I think there is value in that. So I would entertain that when Councilor McCauley is here. I don't think there's any time sensitivity to this, so it would be really nice, given there's a lot of good content here, to have it formally introduced. So I would not support waiving the rules and let it just table to the next meeting.
Councillor Preston?
Yeah, I'd just like to hear from the Director of Sustainability about the timing and if that would affect anything. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Molly Edwards, Sustainability Director. The only issue with the timing, if we do accept any private roads or otherwise, that would be, we would hope it would be a July 1 start. But if that's delayed, it's delayed.
Thank you. Then do you mind sharing a little bit so the public can hear it? Because I don't want to hold that up at all. So is that, may I take that liberty?
That would be
unless someone
fine
else
by the chair, yeah.
Because I don't know enough to.
I think something this big would be good.
Yeah. So the legislation, the proposed legislation is about, it's really about private roads and some of the developments that have occurred since 2019 when we presented a pay-as-you-throw program to the city, which was never brought out of committee, but we have returned some ideas with new ideas and new ways of maybe managing some of these larger developments and some of the private roads. We've heard from a lot of various folks that they obviously do want to participate because they are tax-paying citizens. So we've come up with a lot of different criteria that could be enacted so that we can look at them when they come through the planning and development process.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
And was that Committee of the Whole, I believe?
Correct,
yes. Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on referring this to Public Works and Safety and Committee of the Whole and waiving the rules? So I think we would, sounds good. Roll call?
Roll call as described by the President. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
And Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 9-2.
Moving to committee items, Budget and Finance, Councilor Zede.
Motion to approve Transfer 189.
Second.
Transfer 189 is a $25,000 and change transfer from free cash to fired injured on duty. This is to pay the former fire chief's continued benefits through the end of the fiscal year. And this is net of the insurance amount that we're receiving, which is $1,000 a week. So we've actually done this transfer a few times in the past as other processes have worked out with the retirement board and so forth. And now the finance director and the administration's recommendation is that it simply be funded through the end of the year. We did ask in committee, because we had met back on 5/2, if this was anticipated to become a new budget line. It was. I honestly haven't seen the budget long enough to know that it is in there, but I think that's anticipated. There are other processes that will continue to play out, but in the meantime, these benefits are due to be paid and need to be funded, and this is the recommended source for it, which is free cash. It was 2-0 in committee.
Okay, thank you. Any comments further? All right, hearing none, I think we could do this as a voice vote.
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor of transfer 189, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. All right.
Motion to approve Order 554.
Second.
This is an increase to the senior tax work-off program to an amount of $2,000 per year per person who's participating. First of all, just a brief reminder, the senior work-off program is the program that allows some folks to work for the city in various capacities.
and then receiving, as the name states, a work-off, a reduction in their property taxes. Previously, it was limited to a lower amount, $1,500. This is to increase it to $2,000. This is as a result of the state allowing the limit to go up. We've had this conversation a few times over the years. Some of the potential roles that one could do would be a greeter at City Hall, which many folks see as they come and go from this building. There are also some newer positions. One that they talked about in committee was the Parks Ambassador position, which is to help people find their way through parks and so forth. There's been some work by in the butterfly gardens in the past, and so on and so forth. So it really, it's not a prescribed list of potential roles. It's basically the department heads working with now Sarah Landry, who's the director at the Senior Center, to identify suitable positions that people can do, and then attracting them. About 45 people or so have been participating, as based on the numbers we uncovered in committee. There was a question from Councillor Khan if there had ever been a limit where people wanted to do it and were unable to due to a limit on, say, not enough positions or not enough hours. According to what we were told, no, really there hasn't been any cap. So people have been able to participate if they're so intrigued, and so if there are people who are listening who maybe are interested, they should be encouraged to apply. And then talked about a little bit about this other idea, which is that in some cases an applicant can actually have somebody else do the work if, say, they're not able to, but then they enjoy the benefit of it. But it's pretty strict, so it's not just find somebody and then they do the work and so forth. So that's a conversation that we had a little bit about. In terms of budgetary effect, this would go into effect July 1. Had the $2,000 rate been established for last year, the rough budget impact would have been about $18,500, so $20K for a rough number. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it would be meaningful to some folks who might use it. And in the budget, you won't see a line for work-off or something like that. This goes into the reserve for abatement line, which runs about $350,000 to $400,000 per year is at least what's budgeted. And again, at a budgetary impact of around $20K, didn't warrant, say, changing that number per the finance director. So 2-0, and that is the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for the detailed update. Any further discussion on this matter? This kind of feels like a roll call vote. I know an order doesn't have to be, but it's an acceptance.
We'll go with that feeling. Order 554. Councillor Z?
Yes.
Councillor Donahue?
Yes.
Councillor Granis?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Preston?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
Councillor Wright?
Yes.
And Council President.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve transfer 192.
Second.
This is a transfer of $155,000 from a combination of long-term debt principal and long-term debt interest, almost 50-50, to health insurance premiums. On the source side of funds, the reason funds are available is that really primarily due to Fire Station 2 and timing of when they will access the debt turned out to be a little later than expected, and so there's some slack in this line. It doesn't, of course, mean long-term there'll be slack, but it does today, and there's some debt that just won't roll onto the books until after July 1, so the funds are available on the insurance premium side. This is certainly a very variable line because it all depends on what different employees in the city choose for plans and some different things like that can happen, retirements and so forth. So the estimate right now is that they're going to need that extra $155K to close the shortfall on the insurance line. And again, it's difficult to know. Historically, there had been a little bit of slack in this line, but it's been absorbed through either cuts by the city council over the years or just additional utilization by city employees. So this is anticipated to be enough to get to July 31, and then again we'll take up the longer term question perhaps in budget during the budget process. It was 2-0 in committee.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Transfer 192. Okay, I think we can do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, thank
Motion
you.
to approve transfer 190.
Second.
This is an $18,000 transfer from short-term notes to veterans benefits. So again, on the source side, it's very similar to the prior conversation, just timing and what short-term notes they ended up needing to cover different projects. On the destination side, these are Chapter 115 benefits. So it's Chapter 115 is the state law. These are veterans benefits, but they are administered by the city. As you know, we have our Veteran Services Office, and then we have shared responsibilities or shared costs with other towns, mostly on the administrative side, but the actual benefit costs are, of course, go to each city or town in the consortium. In theory, we're supposed to get back 75% of what we spend towards these benefits from the state, but that requires a fairly rigorous reimbursement process. It's not that we just send them the bill and they pay it and we pay it and then we ask for a reimbursement. So we probed around that a little bit. Unfortunately, we haven't quite been hitting the 75%. Kevin Hunt joined us and was explaining the onerous challenges with the software and the application process and so forth. So that's something, again, we could probably chase. We asked for a little bit of additional information about, you know, over the years, how close to the 75% are we getting? And so this transfer specifically is the direct result of 3 new families moving into the community and being eligible for these benefits. So there's a direct line between this request and those families. Whether they stay in the city or not, that's to be determined. It was 2-0 in committee.
Thank you. Any further discussion on transfer 190? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay.
Next is transfer 191. Motion to approve.
Second.
This is a $30,000 transfer from receipts reserved for appropriation development impact fees to intersection improvement study, $30K. So first thing is, again, source funds. As part of that project. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then on the destination side, this is a $30K towards studying basically very specifically the intersection between Colby Farm Lane, Low Street, North Atkinson, going, you know, basically 50 to 75 feet in any which direction. So it's hyper-focused on the intersection itself. I think generally what we understood, and Councillor McCauley was present as the ward councillor, was helpful in filling in some of the gaps, is that there's a desire or hope to go for some sort of Safe Routes to School type project here, but the Safe Routes to School project program itself has actually changed. Everybody probably remembers that from High Street and the bump outs. That was a very big project, and now they've limited these to less than $1 million project. So there's talk, you know, the rough estimate we had was somewhere between 105, 600K, depending on what kind of grants we are able to access from the state. So I know we've all been receiving emails from residents on Colby Farm Lane, and that's the genesis for this whole thing. So once we finish that, then going back to the source of the funds, this was a subject, I would say, of much conversation some years ago. Originally, it was at least discussed that the Colby Farm Lane developer would create a building up at the, where the compost facility is for the use of parks. That can be traced through the planning board minutes and so forth. It never did make it into the planning board decision, and somehow, some way, it ended up getting erased entirely. That was probably valued more like $250,000. This $60,000 then somehow became replaced. There was a development agreement. It never, of course, came through the council, so that was a little bit of a conversation, and supposedly now we don't get development agreements anymore, or we never did and we never will, I'm not sure. And so this 30K is half of the 60. That is what has been paid to date. The remaining 30 is supposed to come in at the end of this year. When asked, the finance director said we should expect to get those funds, as theoretically that contract is valid, but so I don't know. That's kind of where we ended the conversation. It was 2-0. I think there's a recognition of the challenges at this intersection. Perhaps not as much fanfare around the circumstances around it. 2-0 in committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I mean, the intent of an impact fee is to actually have an impact. And obviously $60,000 between design and everything else has had no impact. So the development agreement was obviously lacking in sufficient funding to have an impact on that intersection and on that development. So I would encourage the administration, if they go down the path again of having a development agreement, that they take into consideration that these impact fees should be sufficient to cover the impact that the development has in the location that it's being authorized by the city.
Councillor Harmon?
I apologize, I was unable.
We also have Finance Director Ethan Manning online and also Director Port. I'd be curious about a couple of questions, but you go first.
Apologies, I was unable to attend the committee meeting. I appreciate the summary. I just would like to add, since it was brought up, and I believe my colleague from Ward 5 would agree, while this is narrowly focused on the intersection at Low Street, North Atkinson, the safe routes to schools matter, and the crosswalk that goes beyond that actual intersection to get to the Bresnahan School across North Atkinson is a vital intersection for safety of kids and families getting from that Colby Farm development and other areas of the neighborhood to the Bresnahan. So limiting it makes sense, I understand that, but I also think we need to think holistically about safety of access and pedestrians getting to and from the schools.
Okay. Director Port, is there any comment? I think the question was raised, and again, maybe this was covered in committee. I'm not sure. I know this was a Budget and Finance Committee. Just in terms of the city getting that $30,000 from the developer when this is all said and done, is that possible for us to know with certainty that that's going to happen? I think that'd be one question. Okay, nobody wants to be promoted to be a panelist. So. Councillor Zeid?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak more for myself outside of this, but I would just say that this was not a successful endeavor, my opinion now, of course, I'm opining. You know, a lot of us followed it from afar and then close, but weren't ever part of the process. And so I had kind of a bad reaction to the development agreement around mobile, and people maybe didn't fully understand why. This is one of the reasons, is I think, the negotiation was completely outside of the council. And remember, the council had to rezone that area to make that development possible. So whether it was desired or not, we were part of the broader scheme. And then the development agreement came around, and then it got amended, and it's basically whittled down what was going to be paid to the city. And at the end, this is the end result, is that we have a bona fide problem. We have people trying to cross Low Street, for example, and we've got to address it. And we could potentially be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, some of it may come from the state, but that's us too, in a sense, and that's fine. But this was a bummer. This one was all around, to me, was a bad one, and I think one that is worth studying and trying to learn from. How can we avoid this in the future? Just to make sure that, again, the key theme is very simple. Don't take private costs and make them public. That's really all there is to it. In this case, this development is now taking private costs, and we're making them public, and we have to, because we have no choice.
I won't take it personally that Finance Director Manning did not allow me to promote him, but and Newburyport has gone out. So we'll, I don't know if the administration wants to add anything, if Andrew Levine wants to speak to this.
No, I'd say that there's some good points that are being brought up here by Councillor Zeid, and certainly we've taken a different approach to development agreements since that agreement we don't believe was ever reviewed by our city solicitor even, so we're making sure that all development agreements now are. I think that's helped considerably with the development of those, so I think that we at least have a path here to doing something that's going to be certainly worthwhile with the funds that have been recovered from this, and certainly there's some opportunities for improving the path towards development agreements in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on Transfer 191? Okay, I think we can have a voice vote on this. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Okay, that's 9-0. Thank you, Councillor Zeid.
Motion to approve collectively orders 560 and 61.
Second.
560 is one of the most newest park bench under the new policy gift. It's $5,000. This is donated by somebody whose spouse passed away and wanted to honor that person. So under the new prescription, it's a 10-year essentially commitment by the city for the $5,000. At the end of that 10-year period, the person who donated is given an option to continue for another 10 years, or the bench could ultimately be reassigned to a new donor if one were to emerge, or if not, of course, it does become the city's responsibility. In terms of the location, it was not finalized at the time of the committee meeting. It was discussed at either Atwood Park or at the Waterfront Park, and that the Parks Commission would ultimately make that decision. We had a little bit of light conversation about, at some point, I think the Parks Division manager said, you know, there's only so many more benches we can add, and we kind of were just trying to figure out how many there were. But it was 2-0. And then the Order 561 is Pioneer League batting cage, $30,000 and change. So Atkinson Common, there's already a batting cage there. This is to replace one with two. So it's an already kind of established corner of the park, and this is just a gift from the Pioneer League. I guess the old one is just a little tired, not super rugged, took a little damage from some recent storms, and this will just provide a better experience for users there. It was discussed if this had any conservation impacts, and it did go to Concom for an RDA, a request for determination, and they determined that an RDA basically said it's not applicable for conservation, so there was no notice of intent requiring to be filed, and so there wasn't one. And then finally, and this just sparked a little bit of conversation, this does not, prevailing wage does not apply to this project, and we had a little bit of conversation about the complexity around the law of that and how they define public works construction, and I guess this did not qualify for that, so it is not mandated to pay prevailing wage, so Pioneer League will not be paying prevailing wage, and the $30K is expected to cover that. So that's the end of that. It was 2-0 in committee.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on collectively 560, Order 560 and Order 561? Okay, hearing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
All right, last one is motion to approve Order 562.
Second.
Okay, this is a grant acceptance from the Cultural District grants in the amount of $30,000. This one did spark a good amount of conversation in committee. So first of all, this is an acceptance of that $30K. It's actually 2 years of funding, and it's sort of, some of it we've already accepted, but essentially accepting it again for belt and suspenders along with the new monies. The time sensitivity around this is that if the funds are not encumbered by June 30th, then they will be returned to their source, and so that was the deal, that was the hope there, or the timing there. In terms of what the project actually is, this is to look at finding a sculpture for the Central Waterfront Park. So I would say, if I could summarize maybe into 2 or 3 things with the conversation circle around. Number one was our new process with the Public Arts Committee. Did this go through it? Will this go through it? And the timing. The answer is that the Public Art Committee is slated to look and try and cultivate, potential artists who want to do this and potential ideas for what the sculpture should be. And so that's the intent right now, as we discussed in committee, is for us to accept the gift, the Public Arts Committee to meet however many times they need to, cultivating or asking for proposals from artists, and then selecting a theme, and then coming back to the council to approve that theme. They're not going to be able to produce a picture of what it's going to look like finally, but it's going to be a ship, or it's going to be a rocket, I don't know, whatever it's going to be, and then the council can look at it and say, we like this. The reason we got into this conversation is that there was some back and forth about the plans. Sasaki's drawing do show a sculpture to be installed that is a ship, and so there was, discussion of whether the council already approved it because it was in the plans, but then we don't necessarily sure it's going to be a ship, so we went back and forth about that, but I think at least among some, there was some agreement that this process would give the council the bite at the apple and seemed to be acceptable. The second thing was that timeline that I mentioned. So the Public Arts Committee, if you remember the lengthy ordinance and all the work, it was designed to be more like a CPC where it comes on annual increments. And the challenge there is we're just kind of going into this without that annual sort of thing to it. The discussion around that was, this is just one of those out of band things, and this is the time when it's coming around and the funds are going to expire and all of those things. So that was the secondary part of the conversation. And then finally, $30,000, the third and final part is $30K is not the full cost of this whole endeavor, meaning $30K doesn't take us from here until we have a sculpture. That's estimated to be more like $75,000. And so the idea is to grab $45,000 that was orphaned from the prior rail trail effort down by the wastewater treatment plant, the revetment from a few years ago. There's some $45K that's left there. Add it to this and then use it. We're not being asked to vote on the $45K because it's already been appropriated, and the administration feels that the appropriation reason for appropriation is good enough, essentially. It doesn't need to be revoted on. That did bring a question, at least from me, about, if we were going to spend another $45K, why wouldn't we use it on, say, the benches or some of the other, more basic amenities? And that's, I guess, a policy decision, but one that we're not directly a part of because, again, the $45K was already appropriated. So in the end, it was 2-0 in committee, and again, I think we'll have another vote on this, probably to community services, I imagine, once some kind of a theme or idea is developed for us to review it. So that's where you should expect it to go. 2-0 in committee.
Thank you for that thorough explanation. Any further discussion on Order 562? Hearing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, that passes 9-0.
So that's it for business, Mr. President. Just a quick update. So Thursday's a regular budget meeting. I know that the agenda on there says budget season, which is certainly true, but that's not really a good agenda. That was a placeholder placed at the time. So it'll mostly be the gifts that were accepted for taken into committee tonight. But we also probably will take a start at that $3 million capital raft, at least on a couple of the items. I'm really thinking hard about how we can have meaningful conversation about that. And it probably is going to be not when each department comes in and we're supposed to be doing their budget and their CIP together. So lots of work. The last thing I want to say is the first budget hearing is next Tuesday, and that's when, this is kind of a little different this year. We're going to have the finance director for 2 meetings, Tuesday and Wednesday, but Tuesday is really foundational. How was the budget built? What does it mean to build a budget on a 2.5? Potentially try and talk about tax impacts, at least to the extent that we can. So trying to take some of the things we've tried to have conversations on, but keep feeling it's not timely, and providing some kind of opportunity for it. So I hope everybody can make it to that Tuesday meeting, and then Wednesday we'll be into more standardized, like here's a line item for this and that sort of thing. And then if there's any informational needs that you have, again, I just invite you to email them to me, or if you want to go directly to the finance director, you can certainly do that as well. But happy to help if I can. I yield. Budget is done for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move to community services. Councilor Preston.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 483 Kevin Hunt for Veterans Agent until 5/1/2025.
Second.
Thank you. So Mr. Hunt came to talk with us in committee. He has been the Veterans Agent for Newburyport for 17 years. As well, he serves on the Disabilities Commission. There was a question about how his time is spent, and he explained to us that it's mostly spent between community events as well as benefits at both the federal and state level. As we heard earlier from one of the transfers tonight, with about 70% of those benefits being federal, about 30% of those being state. He serves the veterans in Newburyport, Amesbury, Merrimack, and Salisbury. The committee voted 3-0 to approve his appointment.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call on appointment 483, Kevin Hunt.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Granis.
Yes.
Councilor Harmon.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Preston.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Wright.
Yes.
And Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with apologies to the clerk, I'm going to go slightly out of order here. So next would be a motion to receive and file communication 541, Kim Turner letter, including supporting documents for the project at 59 Low Street.
Second.
Thank you. So Ms. Turner explained to us that well, firstly, let me say, I apologize. This probably should have been handled with Order 537, which also pertained to the project at 59 Low Street, and I sort of lost track of it. But so Ms. Turner was there and explained to us that the memo is a summary of all the documents and timeline for the project at 59 Low Street. There was a question about the proposed traffic study at the site. So the study is part of the planning board review. And Ms. Turner let us know that in-house engineering staff would likely take the lead on that study, but there is currently no funding for that study at this time. And that was about it. The committee voted 3-0 to receive and file.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Communication 541 as a receive and file? Hearing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion to receive and file, motion to receive and file Order 474, plan approval for the Bartlett Mall Improvement Project.
Second.
Thank you. So again, Ms. Turner was there. She reiterated to us all that the project is currently on pause due to the bids coming in higher than the administration had budgeted for the project. We did hear that there is a team working with the city grant writer to write grants at both the federal and state level for focusing on historic preservation grants, as well as seeking some funding from private funding sources. That team anticipates going back to the CPC to ask for funding again at around the same level, which is about $3 million as the previous ask. So they are currently targeting with these grants that gap between the $4.6 million where the bids came in for the project that we last saw and the $3 million that they would anticipate from the CPC. So they're really looking to get a grant somewhere, to aggregate funding sources for a number somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.6 million, and the timeline for that would be 1 to 2 years. Okay, sorry, one more point on that. There was some discussion in committee whether or not, whether to receive and file the order or if we wanted to approve the design. But there really is a cost associated with the design in that particular order, so we did feel that it probably wasn't appropriate for us to approve it, and rather that a receive and file would be the better route forward. I do also want to mention that there was some public comment centering on concerns for the aquatic life in the pond, the substantial scope increases that we've seen in the project over the time, as well as potential destruction of the historic nature of the Bartlett Mall. The committee voted 3-0 to receive and file.
Okay. Any further discussion on communication? No. On Order 474.
Yes, sorry.
Councillor Khan?
Yeah.
And then Councillor Donahue?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Thank you for that update. It's, I think this is something we've been kind of following peripherally, and my question for the Chair of Community Services, so Order 474, just in terms of going back to some of the context of the original plan, which I believe is what's in this order, can you just clarify, is that what the CPC, this is the order and this is the plan that the CPC approved 2 years ago? Is that correct before I say anything else?
Yeah, Councillor Preston?
Yeah, so it is the same design that we've seen all along, essentially, and that the CPC did approve, gosh, probably 6 months, a year ago, actually, right now. And the question was actually asked, do we anticipate a change in the design before going to the CPC again? And the answer was no, that they anticipate that this is the design. Essentially, we had a conversation about rolling the design up, putting it on a shelf until we get funding sources, and rolling out back the same exact design.
Great, and just to finish that then, I think because we do remember when the CPC 2 years ago going through that plan and having a very detailed conversation. So, you know, it sounds like we're kind of, to me, just spinning wheels a little bit because we're now kind of redoing the whole thing. So I just want to say that I hope when the CPC phasing comes in again that we all pay attention and use that time as well to be attending as councillors and being kind of, and this comment that you kind of got, make sure people are going to those meetings as well. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Councillor Donahue?
Yes, thank you, President. I initially was not going to support sending this to receive and file because I did feel that we should keep it sort of as our dedicated plan. But it in the end didn't make sense to keep something that had the financials tied to it that may change and that were, you know, not approved. So it didn't stick. So that was really the genesis for really that the three of us decided not to keep it on the shelf and to receive and file it because it's going to come back the same. And to the at-large councillor's point, we do want to be cognizant and make sure people are aware and paying attention and being, involved. But it didn't make sense to keep it with the numbers in there the way they were. So that's why I voted the way I did anyway. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further comments? Yeah, I just will note for the record that this order, was submitted in July of 2023, so it has been there for a while, and as others have said, we will move on. All right, so we'll do, hearing no more comment, we will do a voice vote on this order 474 to receive and file. All those in favor of receiving and filing say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, so that passes 9-0. Councilor Preston?
Yes, thank you. Last is motion to receive and file communication 525, letter from Joe Morgan regarding Frog Pond Restoration Project.
Second.
Thank you. So I am particularly concerned about this, so I do want to give just a little bit of background on this. Mr. Morgan, who at the time was also a member of the Historic Commission, submitted an email to the administration with a CC to the former members of Community Services Committee, which at the time would be Councillor Donahue, myself, and Councillor McCauley, with several questions about the project, as he feels it could have a destructive impact on the historic nature of the Bartlett Mow, as well as the aquatic life in the pond. I subsequently asked Mr. Morgan to submit his communication to the council so that all the councillors could have access to that information. Unfortunately, I believe that communication has led to Mr. Morgan being removed from the Historic Commission, which I deeply regret. By all accounts, Mr. Morgan was a valuable member of the Historic Commission, so I discussed it with the mayor on several occasions, asking him to reconsider reappointing Mr. Morgan to the Historic Commission, which he declined. The mayor explained that he would like to get more female voices and, in general, new voices on all of the boards and commissions across the city. However, since Mr. Morgan was removed, several new appointments have been made, which include no women, and several members of the Historic Commission that have been on for more than 10+ years have been reappointed to that same commission. In fact, Mr. Morgan was indeed one of the shortest tenured Historic Commission members at the time of his removal. Mr. Morgan then joined us to speak to his communication and his concerns about the project at the Frog Pond, again centering on the aquatic life in the pond, as well as the historic nature of the Bartlett Mow. The committee then voted 3-0 to receive and file the communication.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will do a voice vote on communication 525. All those in favor? Receiving aye. Those opposed? No. Okay.
Thank you. That's it. Coming out of Community Services tonight, our next meeting will be next Monday on the 20th at 5 p.m. All we have on our docket right now are the 2 new appointments to the Waterfront Trust that came into the packet tonight.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. For general government, we did not meet tonight. We will be meeting on Tuesday, May 28th, which, because of Memorial Day, our regular meeting will also be on that Tuesday, but we're going to meet at 5:30, and we will be discussing communication 550, so that's the request regarding human resources related to the library, so we'll be discussing that at that point. So license and permits, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to approve application 199, application 200, and application 201.
Second.
Okay, all collective, yep.
Yes, sorry. So application one, first of all three applications have all the requisite signatures, insurance binders, so all of that is, those are all done and all out of the way. Application 199 is the 10th annual Harborside Half Marathon and 5K, scheduled for Sunday, November 10th from 9 until 1:30 p.m. As indicated, it's the 10th annual. There's no changes to the event. It essentially starts in the industrial park at Parker Street and ends up in Cashman Park. Application 200 is the Tri-State Trek on Saturday, 6/22 from 10:30 to 2:30. This goes across a number of communities. It does touch a part of Newburyport on the transition. If you look at the application, there's a very detailed list of streets and places that it goes to across the communities.
So that's what we have for application 200. Application 201 is one that was recently provided to us from the Newburyport Public Schools. This is the second year of the event. The only part of the event that applies to us, the rest of it applies to the Waterfront Trust, which is where they'll be holding most of it. What they've asked is to have a vendor, the Kona ice truck, parked on the city's property, essentially where the bathrooms were on the waterfront. They have subsequently provided us with the full application and additional documentation, and this is a city-sponsored event, so no insurance is necessary.
All right, thank you very much. Any further discussion on these three applications collectively to approve? I think we can do a voice vote on applications. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, 9-0 for all three.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just the items still in committee. There's application 193, which is the right to end Alzheimer's. It's scheduled for Saturday, June 1st. We just had some scheduling issues in reaching the person that's applied. They're out of state, and so I'll give them another opportunity to be at our next meeting. And then application 202 was an amendment to a pocket. That's remained in committee for no other reason than it was an oversight. We didn't take it up, so we'll take that up in our next meeting as well.
Thank you very much.
And that meeting will be next Wednesday.
Thank you. Planning and Development, Councillor Shand.
Thank you, Council President. So nothing came out of committee, but I will give the committee an update. So we did discuss communication 549. That was the item that Director Port gave us on MBTA communities. We were looking to sort of gain consensus among the whole council on which direction we wanted to go as far as zoning goes for MBTA communities. The consensus was we were going to go by what the ZAG committee was looking at, which is basically extending the 40R we currently have in the industrial park down Parker Street and including Hines Way. We decided not to go down the IMPRO site, which is what the planning board had recommended for various reasons. One being we didn't want to not have the opportunity to have control over what that site would look like. So the consensus was purely on Parker Street and Hines Way. What we gave Director Port as a go forward is to go through MVCP to make sure all the numbers add up for what we need to make sure we get the 1292 units for mass MBTA communities. And we also wanted to get some clarification from the city solicitor on what the required vote was, whether it needed to be 6 or 8. So hopefully by next week, once I get this information, I don't necessarily think it needs to be a communication, but I'll make sure the whole council gets it. What we're probably going to do at our once we get that information, we're probably going to give Director Port direction as to do we have the 8 votes or 6 votes to go down the path of the ZAG committee zoning, which is just the industrial park zoning. And then with that, we'll probably have a conversation in the full council and then give him direction to use that and go to the state with what our recommendation is for MBTA communities. I think that is a 3-month cycle to get input back from the state. Presuming that works out, then we'll have the actual ordinance for the zoning change come in after that. So that's it for MBTA communities. So a few items we still have left to get from Director Port. And I will say I think Zoom crashed, which is why he couldn't get back in.
Yes, all right.
And then the last one is the one that came in tonight, which is the zoning for Low Street and new services, making that spot for 59 Low Street 1A. I will repeat, June 5th is what Director Port has scheduled with the planning board for our joint meeting, so just mark your calendars for that. And that is it for planning and development, and we'll see if we're going to meet next week, whether we have a topic or not. And I yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Shand. Public Works and Safety, Councillor Granis.
Good evening, Council President. Motion to approve appointment 484, Tom Bailey to the Water Sewer Commission as an alternate.
Second.
Mr. Bailey came before the committee to discuss his nomination. He's been a resident of Newburyport for about 5 years. His background is in construction and civil engineering. He has worked on several big water projects for different municipalities. He said he'd like to give back to his new community and thinks he could be of value to many of the water projects that we have coming before us here in Newburyport. He has previous municipal experience, being a member of the planning board in Reading, Massachusetts, and the committee voted 3-0 to recommend his approval.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on this appointment? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call.
Roll call on appointment 484. Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
And Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Granis?
Motion to approve appointment 487, the reappointment of Adam Armstrong to the Harbor Commission.
Second.
Mr. Armstrong came before the committee to discuss his nomination. This is a reappointment, and he mentioned what an interesting learning curve he experienced in his first term. Mr. Armstrong worked on the recent dredge and the side dredge as he worked cross-border with Salisbury. He currently is engaged with a semi-regional group called 8 Towns and the Great Marsh, which is leading efforts to help save the marshes and their relationship to the rivers and oceans. He's also been involved in stationing a weather buoy outside the mouth of the river, which can provide critical information for boaters, as well as CSO counts and alerts. Mr. Armstrong looks forward to continuing supporting forward progress of the Harbor Master, and the committee voted 3-0 to support his appointment.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
On 487, Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
And Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion to approve ordinance 171.
Second.
This ordinance is to move a handicap space on Pleasant Street Pleasant Street 20 feet so as to place an already approved new crosswalk across Pleasant Street at the end of Inn Street in front of Oregano's and New Kitchen. The crosswalk will be ADA compliant, and part of this move is improving spacing and sight lines, which is what the ordinance change is. The committee did vote 3-0 to approve.
Great, thank you. Further discussion, Councilor Zede?
I just don't know if anybody knows the answer, but when all is said and done with this, are there any spaces going to be lost? Maybe the parking clerk knows.
Parking spaces?
So it was moved west, which means it's moved towards Green Street, 20, and the average space is 20.
So you'll lose one?
I would think so.
But then, I'm sorry. So then on the other side, to finish the crosswalk though, do you think you'll lose one on that side too?
I don't think so, because that is a striped area right in front.
There's often a cone there, I think.
For that reason, yeah.
If I'll call on myself. Looking at the map, I was wondering the same thing. If I could share it, I'm on my own laptop. Yeah, it's on two corners, so the corner of Inn Street closer to us, right? Inn Street's over here, and it lines up with a corner on the other side of Pleasant. So I think it doesn't look like it would impact any parking. Any further discussion? Councilor Donahue?
I can give a little clarification. I was asked to co-sponsor, which I have no problem doing because I do understand this issue and it's pretty familiar. So basically, this is an area that is crossed frequently by pedestrians, especially because of the opening that is naturally there to Inn Street. The spot that is moving towards Green Street, the handicap parking spot, obviously we can't remove that spot entirely, so we do have to just move it down. You can't take away access when it's already existing. So while the space is further down, I guess it bumps down, but it's going to really improve the access in that very heavy pedestrian area. I mean, and also it's worth noting that the abutting businesses have been notified. They're all of understanding and on board, and essentially it's going to actually drive pedestrians right into Oregano, so they have no problem, and vice versa into New Kitchen. But it really is a matter of safety and access, safely. Originally, the plan was to have the crosswalks at a slight angle so you wouldn't have to move the space, but that was scrapped essentially because it just didn't create a safe environment. It wasn't good sight line. You'd have to have a tactile sort of rumble strip bordering the entire length of it because it's at an angle. So it just wasn't really the right answer. This is the much more sound solution. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion on ordinance 171? Hearing none, roll call.
Roll call on approving first reading. Councillor Zede.
Yes.
Councillor Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor Granis.
Yes.
Councillor Harmon.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
Yes.
Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Councillor Shan.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes.
9-2. Thank you.
Motion to receive and file communication 527.
Second.
Thank you. This communication is a letter from Phil Cootie representing Phillips Drive neighborhood. Mr. Cootie submitted this letter back in January. We kept it in committee as an open item until we can get some closure. Now with the funding from ARPA and Chapter 90, we believe the funding to finish the project is there, and we can now receive and file this reminder. The committee did vote 3-0 to receive and file.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on communication 527? Hearing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, so that Public Works and Safety. Excellent job, Councillor Granis.
Next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 20th. The agenda is posted online. Nothing further.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
That would be moving to good of the order. I actually have something. So just, I think this was in councilors' mailboxes. So Memorial Day, which is Monday, May 27th. Very similar to every year. We've been doing it for quite some time. Gather at the CVS parking lot for those of you interested in parading down to City Hall. So CVS parking lot, 10:15 gathering. I think that walk-off starts at about 11:15 or so, and then 11 City Hall steps will be the ceremony, followed by procession to the waterfront, and then Veterans Ceremony, Veterans Cemetery. In case of rain, which hopefully won't happen, City Hall Auditorium. Any further goods of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Have a good evening. Well, the over and under on this meeting was 8:30.
Huh?